So let's have a little chat, shall we? I was thinking about something. I want to talk about Monique. Yeah, Spirit led me to talk about Monique. And the reason I want to just briefly talk about Monique, we all know who Monique is, the comedian, whatever the case may be, love her or hate her. I want to give my occult assessment of what's really going on with Monique and why Monique can no longer find work. The reason Monique, where's my, where is it? Shit, where is it? Oh, there it is. The reason Monique can no longer find work is because, let's call it the Joan Crawford effect. My nose is stopped up. I needed some nose spray. Let's call it the Joan Crawford effect. When Monique played that role of Mary in the movie Precious, she played a very brutal, a very vicious and malicious person. Oh, I must be telling the truth because I see spirits. I see them spirits coming up in my room, so I must be on to something. Okay. When Monique played that role in Precious, what people have to understand first is this. Actors, a lot of them are channelers. Some of them are natural channelers. I'm a channeler, so I understand that. But a lot of actors are channelers, and they're channeling different energies. And, people in the industry or whoever, I don't even want to use that term, but you get what I'm saying. A lot of times, certain energies are put on them, But the problem becomes is that, or the problem is, rather, is that when these energies are put on them, they have a hard time shaking them. That is why I call it the Joan Crawford effect. Okay? Because the same thing happened to Faye Dunaway when she played Joan Crawford in Mommy Dearest. When Faye Dunaway played Joan Crawford in Mommy Dearest, Joan Crawford's spirit stayed with her. And that is why Faye Dunaway's career went down the toilet. See, people keep thinking, oh, it's because she's difficult, or oh, because then those things may all be well, fine, and true. But when you're an occultist or a spiritualist, you look at what people are not paying attention to. I can still see Joan Crawford's spirit on Faye Dunaway. Same thing with Jessica Lange. She played Joan Crawford in that show Feud, Betty versus Joan. I still see Joan Crawford's spirit on Jessica Lange as well. When Jessica Lange returned, and I made a video about this before, when Jessica Lange came back to American Horror Story to play Constance Langdon, you could still see remnants of Joan Crawford and her energy on Jessica Lange. See, they would have to come to somebody like me in order to get that energy off of them. But that's another motherfucking story. The same thing is happening with Monique. It's the Mary, what was her last name? Precious, what was her name? Precious, was it Precious Jackson? I believe. Precious Jackson. It's the same thing with the character of Mary. Okay, in the movie Precious. Now, Mary was not based off of a real character, if I'm not mistaken, or then again, it could have been. A lot of times, these characters that these actors and actresses channel, a lot of times we're looking at biographies and we don't even know it because they pick and choose what they want to tell us is an actual account versus fiction. They pick and choose. When Monique took on that energy of Mary, or took on that role or that mantle of Mary in the movie Precious, Lee Daniels told her, he told her from the beginning, and see, people weren't paying attention. He said that this role had the ability to either make you or break you. It was up to you to decide if you wanted to play this character. But Lee Daniels warned her. He said, look, this character can either expand your career or destroy it. And that character destroyed her career. And the reason that character destroyed her career was because that energy that they put on her was a self-destructive energy. Mary, the character that Monique played, was a very self-destructive person. She was very self-destructive. She was very, 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 very malicious. She was very, very, very bad. Very bad fucking negative fucking energy. She was an abuser of her daughter. She was an abuser of herself. She was a horrible motherfucking person. Okay? And I still see that energy with Monique. Whether that character was fictitious or not, that energy is still following Monique. Y'all ain't ready for that. It doesn't matter if that character was fictitious, meaning that it was a fake character. You can create any motherfucking thing. It's called, actually, what did they call that? When I used to read Sylvia Brown books, she talked about how people could create different entities or whatever the case may be. I think it's called a tulpa. A tulpa. A tulpa is a created entity that you create. You can call it Mary. You can call it whatever the fuck you want. But the same thing that happened to Faye Dunaway and Jessica Lange is the same exact thing that's happening to Monique. The difference is that Joan Crawford was an actual person. She was a real person. She was an actress from back in the day who was accused of abusing her adoptive daughter and adoptive son, Christopher and Christina Crawford. And her character, and Joan Crawford and Mary, the character of Mary that Monique played in Precious, I think the character's last name was Jackson. Mary Jackson had a lot in common with Joan Crawford in her persona, in the abusive sense. They were both very abusive people. So what's happening, let's sum this up. What's happening to Monique is the fact that she can't get that motherfucking energy off of her. That's why her career has gone down the motherfucking tubes. They put energy, see, this is why a lot of times these actors go fucking crazy. Because they put certain energies on them, and then they can't shake those motherfucking energies, and then they don't know how to get it off of them. See, I know how to get that shit up off of them. See, I know how to do that. But I'm not going to get into all that here on YouTube. Okay? There is a way to get those to get those energies off of those people. There's a way to do it, but again, I'm not getting into that. But that entity of Mary Jackson, or whatever her name was, and if her last name wasn't Jackson, I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying. That entity or that energy is still attached to Monique. And that is why everything around her seems to be going down the motherfucking drain. So when they kept saying that Monique was difficult and all that other bullshit, you know what I mean? I'm not even, that's neither here nor there. I'm looking at it from an occult aspect because that is what I do. I am the occult view, aka Sia Grant. That is what I do. I'm the occult view. I give you my occult assessment. And the reason Monique's career is going down the drain, and it will continue to go down the drain, is because of the Joan The same thing with Faye Dunaway. With Faye Dunaway and Jessica Lange, it was the Joan Crawford effect. With Monique, it's the Mary Jackson effect. Or whatever the last name of that character was that she played in Precious. That energy is still attached to her, and I can still see that energy that they created for her to play that vicious role, that energy is still attached to her. It is still attached to her, and that is why she is having a hard time reigniting her career. It has nothing to do with her being difficult. It's the energy that's attached to her. Mary was a very self-destructive person. She was a very impulsive, self-destructive, abusive person. And no matter how much weight Monique lost, that energy is still following her, and therefore it's having an effect on her career and everything else around her as well. That is why she can't find work. The same thing happened to Faye Dunaway when she played Joan Crawford. They put Joan Crawford's spirit on her. She channeled that fucking spirit, or however you want to call it. When they ritualized her to play Joan Crawford, she couldn't get that energy off of her. And therefore, because Joan Crawford was also a very difficult woman, she was known for being very difficult and, very combative, with co-stars and shit like that. And Faye Dunaway, they were ritualizing Faye Dunaway back in the 70s to play Joan Crawford long before I was born, but people didn't recognize it. I did. They were ritualizing her to play Joan Crawford back then. And once she played her in Mommy Dearest in 1981, that energy, Joan Crawford's energy, stayed with her. And even Faye Dunaway herself, she did interviews saying that she had nightmares playing that role. She said she would wake up at night with nightmares. It was very frightening to play that role. Jessica Lange, when she played Joan Crawford in Fuse, she even said that she had to really push that energy off of her. She said that in an interview in so many words. She didn't say that verbatim, but by me being an occultist and a spiritualist, I can read between the lines. I knew what she meant. Those energies they stay with them if it's not properly removed. And if it's not properly removed, then it can do what it has been doing to them, which is destroying their careers, destroying their personal lives, and everything else. So that is really what's going on with Monique. We all know that she had a big beef with Tyler Perry, Lee Daniels, Oprah Winfrey, etc., etc. But nobody is looking at it from an occult aspect. That character of Mary Jackson, whatever that character's name was, the character of Mary, that entity they created for her to play and channel, that energy is still with her. It is still with her. I can still see it. And that is one of the main reasons why Monique is having the problems in her career. Same way with Joan Crawford, same way with Jessica Lange. Because after she played Joan Crawford, when she came back to American Horror Story in season 8 of The Apocalypse, I still saw and sensed Joan Crawford's energy with her. She was still playing that role from when she played on Feud a few years prior, or a year prior. Joan Crawford's energy was still with her. I saw her energy with her. I sensed it. And that is unusual for Jessica Lange, because Jessica Lange is a damn good motherfucking actress. She's a damn good motherfucking actress. She can act most people up under the goddamn table. And most of her work has always been very diversified. You could always see the diversity in her work, meaning that you never saw remnants of other characters that she played in a current movie or in a current role. Because a lot of actors, they play the same character over and over again when they're supposed to be playing a totally different character. I never saw that in Jessica Lange's work until she took on playing Joan Crawford. That is why they will not do a movie another reboot or another movie, telling Joan Crawford's life story, because somebody probably has an understanding that, listen, her spirit is very aggressive. Once it's on you, it's hard to get it off of you. So the same thing has happened to Monique with this entity that they call Mary. That entity is still with her. That is why she's having the problems that she's having in her career. Like it, love it, hate it, whatever. But that's what's going on, and that's my perspective on it. That is my occult view on what's going on with Monique. Thank you.